What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. We're talking about Dark X-Men number 2, written by Steve Fox, with art by Jonas Scharf, and color by Frank Martin. Now, before I actually dig into the comic proper, I do want to say real quick, just shout out to everyone who came up and approached me at Memphis Comics Expo over this weekend. I'm actually recording this on Sunday. I literally just got back. For those who are not familiar, it's a comic book convention here in my backyard of Memphis, Tennessee. That said, I want to give a shout out to everyone who came up and said hi. Just real quick shout out to Quinn McGowan of Legends Press, as well as John Cooley and everyone else over at Fanboy Entertainment, Chandar Wilson over at Shockwave Comic Studios, Gabriel Duranzo and Matt Bowers over at Bad Dog Comics, Charles Banks from The Universe Comics, Mike Norton, artist of both Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, and probably anywhere else you've ever bought a comic before, and also everyone else who approached me. There were a lot of people that I didn't realize lived in Memphis or lived near and around Memphis who actually knew who the hell I even was. It was a really cool experience. It was a very heartwarming experience, and I'm not gonna lie, there were a few times I almost teared up. But anyway, we're here to talk about Dark X-Men, so let's do it. The real main meat of everything I really want to talk about here is what's going on with Agent Craw and Agent Valance. We get a huge info dump on these characters, and these are brand new characters. We've never met either one of these two ever a day in our lives. Their first appearance was literally in Dark X-Men number 1, but the way that Steve Fox has written them into the story is very interesting because they basically have backdated them into a lot of events that have taken place over the course of the Marvel Comics universe's history. Agent Craw has literally been tied into the events of Dark Reign, saying that he used to actually work for S.H.I.E.L.D. before ultimately working for Norman Osborn and Hammer back when Norman Osborn was literally the top cop in all of Marvel Comics right after the end of Secret Invasion. He's also been backdated into some of the events that I believe probably took place roughly around the time of Iron Man 2020. Agent Craw is supposed to be the cybernetics wizard of Orchis right now, and while technically there are other characters who can boast tons of accolades in the realm of cybernetics, this guy is one of the ones who does it and has no scruples whatsoever. It seems like he was ultimately removed from S.H.I.E.L.D. because of his very twisted ways in experimenting on people and seemingly specializing in pain and torture. Now, granted, his expertise in pain and torture and pain thresholds is not necessarily relegated to humans. It's actually relegated to artificial intelligence, which should let you know that this guy is a whole problem if humans are worried that he is causing artificial intelligence too much pain. The long and short of it is that this guy ultimately was fired from a lot of the organizations that he worked for ultimately, but we never really get the reasons why. A lot of his file is redacted, as one might imagine, but for all intents and purposes right now, he is one of the twisted minds behind a lot of Orchis's technological advancements as of late. And on the other side of it, his partner, Agent Valance, is a whole other story altogether. We don't really learn a whole heap of a lot about her either, but one thing we know for a fact is that while she was working for Le Bureau Discreet, which is for all intents and purposes a intelligence agency inside of France, when she was working with them, she encountered a demonic incursion, and during that incursion, that is when Agent Valance became someone else entirely. I say that because when we get a chance to look at her file, it stated that the Agent Valance, who initially worked for Le Bureau Discreet, was a very nice, warm, caring, and kind person. But after her encounter with that demonic incursion is that she sold out every single member of her squad during that demonic incursion in order to save her own life. And from that moment forward, Agent Valance has never been the same again. She has become the polar opposite of the person that she used to be, which leads me to believe that, yeah, she is in fact not the same person anymore. She is very likely demonically possessed and has been ever since. One thing is for certain is that she also seems to have some ties to the Doctor Strange corner of the Marvel Comics universe, because it is stated that she is an expert in the occult and sorcery, and that she might just have been in some way, shape, form, or fashion not necessarily responsible for the death of Doctor Strange that happened just this past year, but that she had been committing a lot of assassinations in the magic community roughly around that time. So once again, it's not to say that she was the one who killed Doctor Strange during the events of the death of Doctor Strange. We know for a fact that was actually Caecilius, but she was out here being a whole problem just the same around that time, being referred to as a Scarlet Woman. All in all, the reason why these two characters work really well together is that they've been able to do something that no one else has been able to do. And in the previous video, and I'm not going to rehash anything I said there, but largely because I did a whole spiel about it the last time we talked about Dark X-Men with Dark X-Men #1. So if you want to know more about what was going on there in regards to the Madeline Prior that we have discovered Orchis has had under lock and key, well, just check out that video up there and you'll learn everything you need to know about that version of Madeline Prior. But yes, it is hard confirmed that she is in fact that very same Madeline Prior, Earth 91-240. She no longer exists truly as what you may remember as. As we talked about previously in X-Men Blue, she was transported back to Limbo, and apparently she has been there so long that Madeline Prior no longer exists the way we know Madeline Prior. And even this version of Madeline Prior is not the same person anymore. She has spent so much time in Limbo, which for all intents and purposes is a timeless realm, that she has lost all semblance of being the woman that you would normally associate with being a variant of Madeline Prior. That version of Madeline Prior no longer exists. She is only the Goblin Queen now. And I think it's safe to say we're getting a showdown. We're going to be setting up a showdown between this version of Madeline Prior, now known as just the Goblin Queen, and our Earth 616 version of the Goblin Queen, Madeline Prior, or as I like to affectionately call her, Maddie. But in this case, I think this is going to be a really interesting, big duke-a-roo between these two characters, and it's largely just based on the notion that we have seen our version of Madeline Prior go through so much. She has changed so much dramatically over the years that when you go back and look at who Madeline was back in the day, back when she was still just a plucky Jean Grey clone that didn't know that she was a clone of Jean Grey all those years ago, and grew to discover that she was in fact a clone, that she lost her whole damn mind, caused the first Inferno, and has long been an off and on villain ever since, and has just very recently, as of Dark Web, worked with the Spider-Man clone Ben Reilly to create a second Inferno, and it was only thanks to Jean Grey just offering her the love and affection and the warmth that she lacked in life that turned her completely around to make her into a person that is, I won't necessarily say is just a goody two-shoes now, but she's someone who is more inclined to do good than to do evil, and she wants to be the change that Limbo needs, because while Limbo is an ever-changing place, it's a place that's grown incredibly stagnant just in terms of what it represents. And I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic, putting these two characters in the same room and having them battle it out. And with Orchis kind of caught in the middle, the X-Men kind of caught in the middle, but I can definitely tell you right now, the Goblin Queen of Earth 91-240 has no interest in anything Orchis is trying to perpetrate here. As a matter of fact, they make it pretty obvious when Orchis is using Blight's Will on her, and she doesn't care. And for those who are unfamiliar, Blight's Will effectively deactivates a person's mutant powers temporarily or permanently, depending on how long they're exposed to it. But Madelyne of that universe, the Goblin Queen, she has grown so far past being a mutant, even a mutant who has Omega level capabilities, as is stated in this comic, that she just doesn't care. She has advanced her powers in the realm of magic and the occult, that losing Omega level mutant powers is something she can actually laugh about, which should be incredibly scary and terrifying, especially when we learn exactly what it is that she's done to Angel. But before I tell you exactly what it is that she's done to Angel, I have one thing, just one thing that I want to ask of you, and it's a small price to pay for this information. All it costs you is just one measly little like. That's right, all you gotta do is click the like button. You click that like button, and honestly, I feel like that is payment enough to learn this information about what is happening with Angel, thanks to the Goblin Queen of Earth 91-240. And also, while you're here, while we're clicking buttons and stuff, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell, so that way you don't miss out on any of my videos breaking down future issues of Dark X-Men, as well as other X-Men related content, as well as me breaking down other comics from Marvel, DC, and wherever else. But no, what I find very disheartening in this issue, and I don't mean disheartening in a bad way, just it's like one of those things I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this, is that, you know, when last we left off with the character Angel was left behind because the first outing of the Dark X-Men went pretty poorly. It went pretty poorly. I think it's safe to say I think we can all admit that. But what happened with Angel, I felt, was really, really heartbreaking because he got left behind. He was left for dead. Orcus got their hands on him and they turned him over to the Goblin Queen. And the Goblin Queen has transformed him into probably one of the most deadly versions of Angel we've seen in a long time. Warren Worthington III, aka Angel, while being one of the OG original recipe X-Men, and I would actually say, you know, Warren gets a bad rap because, you know, he was always relegated to scrub status for a lot of people because his only superpower was having wings for the longest time. He didn't really have any other abilities, and it wasn't really until the X Factor series and early days X-Men where we actually saw Angel become something more when Apocalypse transformed him into one of his 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, Death. And we kind of get a return of Angel in that format, but with a much more grisly look to him. His face seems to have been eaten off by the Goblin Queen, and he has been transformed into a much more demonic version of Angel than I think we've seen in quite some time, and he is a whole problem. And for those who are wondering, like, what is going on with him, because, you know, Angel's kind of been all over the place. He's in this weird state where, you know, originally he started out with regular feather wings, and then later on, after his encounter with Apocalypse becoming Death, he got the metallic wings, and then sometime later down the road, the wings went back to being regular wings, and then later on he got them back, and it's one of those deals now where it's actually a part of his mutation. It was roughly around the time, and I want to say it was like Uncanny X-Men number 10 back in 2016. This was the 4th relaunch of Uncanny X-Men, if I'm not mistaken. It was around this time frame it was discovered that Angel can actually transform backward and forward between being his normal Angel form, where he's just normal, regular, everyday white dude, to being the blue version of himself, which is Archangel, and complete with the techno-organic wings and all the power that comes with that. So if you're wondering, like, where in the hell is all this coming from, and you were confused about, you know, what has happened between the time that he got the metallic wings, lost the metallic wings, got them back again, it's one of those deals where he can literally transform on a dime. But his transformation is very similar to something you would probably associate with early days Hulk, where it's his anger and his stress levels, his discomfort that can bring these emotions out. Typically anger more than anything else. But yeah, we have actually seen that, especially if you go back and read the Teenie Howard X-Corp series, there is actually a really interesting issue in that run where we see that, you know, he's trying to hold a business meeting at a party, and he's trying to keep his cool, and some craziness happens with the Fenris twins, and he ends up losing it and striking them down and almost coming very close to killing them, but he doesn't. But he's so proud of himself because he never turned into Archangel, only for us to realize he actually did turn into Archangel, but it was Mastermind who put up an illusion to make it appear that he was still just regular Warren Worthington III, and that he still maintained his level of control. So yeah, this is actually really heartbreaking, if I'm being brutally honest, for Angel. He's been through the ringer, and I hate it for him. Some other interesting things that happen in this issue, and I guess while we're talking about Angel, we do learn what happened to the Morlocks during the X-Men Hellfire Gala 2023 one-shot. It's that the whole effect of Xavier trying to tell all the mutants across the world to, you know, go through the Krakoan gates. Apparently the Morlocks were over off the coast of Madripoor, and they were literally on a boat, like partying out in the middle of the ocean, and they couldn't reach any of the Krakoan gates by the time that everything had happened. By the time that they even probably got to a gate, that those gates were turned off. So that's why the Morlocks are actually still there. So I thought that was actually a pretty interesting touch, and it was good to see Callisto again, because I was kind of wondering, you know, whatever happened to her, because, you know, after her stint on Jerry Duggan's Marauders, she just kind of fell off, and I thought that was so sad because she was getting a lot of really good character development as of late. But it's good to see she's back, and while a lot of Morlocks just recently got killed by the recently returned Death version of Archangel, I hope that she gets to hang around. I would really like to see Callisto hang around a little bit. Seeing her and Maddie interact with each other, I think that would be pretty cool. One of the other sad things that happens, like, you know, in the previous issue, we saw that Havoc had seemingly maybe potentially been killed by Albert, the cybernetic clone of Wolverine. And we discovered in this issue a couple of interesting things regarding that, one of which being that, well, for one, Albert is been dismantled, but he is very much still active, and it's largely thanks to Agent Craw that this is the case, because he is now spying on the Dark X-Men inside of their Limbo embassy, which is their, you know, new base of operations. If you don't know what's going on there, why there's a Limbo embassy, go check out this video up here and you'll learn all about that. But so that part's pretty interesting too. We actually see LCD in this, so that was actually pretty awesome too, knowing that she's been taken apart. I thought maybe she might have been killed, but, you know, once again, she's technically cybernetic being, so, you know, of course she can't, you know, permanently die. So that part was cool. But in regards to what happened with Albert and Havoc, it seemed like, man, maybe Havoc might not have been long for this earth, and apparently he is technically still alive. But what was very interesting about this is we see a moment, and I think some people will probably look at it and dismiss it as just taking it for what it is, but I think something happened to Havoc that Maddie's not talking about. It's the fact that she does actually admit that the only thing that was keeping Havoc alive in the moment that she was caring for him was her telekinetic ability to keep the blood inside of his body, the same blood that was trying to gush from out of his throat after Albert had stabbed him in the throat. He would have effectively died if she were not using her TK to keep it all inside of him. And we later see that, you know, the door gets closed when Gambit's trying to peek in, and then we see later Havoc shows up looking very pale. Well, I think some people just write it off as though, you know, Maddie just patched him up. I think he legitimately died. I think Havoc is actually legitimately dead. Now, granted, the only thing that's keeping me from 100% believing that Havoc is legitimately dead is that Maddie does kind of jokingly say that if he dies, she will bring him back to life and kill him again. However, who's to say she didn't do that? And yeah, I think this version of Havoc we're looking at, I think is very much a dead one that Maddie's just reanimating through dark sorcery, which she is well within her capability to do so. Mutant resurrection is off the table for the foreseeable future. So yeah, X-Men can't just die willy-nilly anymore and expect to be brought back to life. I'm gonna go on a limb and say, yeah, I think Havoc's dead, and I don't think he knows it. Other than that, probably one of the other cool things we got in this is a pretty quick one. We get to see the character Carmen Cruz, aka Gimmick, who now has a new name. This is actually a name that when Vita Ayala was writing the Children of the Atom series, if they would have gotten the opportunity to carry on with that story arc and you know, continue writing the story of Carmen Cruz, they had revealed that their new mutant name would not have been Gimmick, but it would have been changed to Faint. And I don't mean faint as in, I don't mean like that. I mean like faint as in, like, you know, to throw someone off their game. How you can kind of like feint a punch or, you know, something like that, because her power, it kind of makes sense because, you know, she's a metamorph. She's able to transform herself in various and sundry ways to look like other people, to change her clothes at will, to change her look at will. And I feel like, you know, while it's definitely a name that it's kind of a reach, I like it better than Gimmick. Though honestly, if she would have kept the name Gimmick, I would have been fine with that too. But I feel like Gimmick almost kind of makes her seem like she's some kind of a carny. All in all, great issue. I really enjoyed it. I like where Steve Fox and company are going with this, and I can't wait to see exactly what's going to go down when Madeline Pryor and the Goblin Queen of Earth 91-240. I'm also curious to see how this first interaction with the new version of Angel, meeting up with the Dark X-Men now, that part's going to be really interesting, especially with everything going on between Maddie and Maggot right now. They're not on good terms right now because of how they treated Warren in this issue. And I think it's safe to say we're going to get Angel back. It's going to happen. I mean, he has a healing factor, so it's anything they've done to him that or in any way to kill him, I'm sure he can come back from. So I'm not so much worried about that. But if you enjoyed this video, do the YouTube thing, like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you tap that notification bell because I'm always posting new videos throughout the week. So if you want to see more just like this, click all those buttons to see more. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, let me know what you thought about Dark X-Men #2. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.